I'm sitting here, staring at my computer screen, trying to find the right words to explain what has happened over the last few months. My name is Mike, and I'm a 35-year-old guy who thought he had a decent marriage. I've been married to Sarah for nearly a decade. We met in college, and like most people, we had our ups and downs. Who does? But we made it work. Or at least I thought we did. Our relationship started off strong. We were the couple everyone envied, always laughing, planning our future, and genuinely loving each other. But lately, something felt off. The signs were subtle at first. Sarah became more distant. She'd come home late from work, claiming she was stuck in meetings or helping colleagues with projects. I didn't want to be that paranoid husband who jumps to conclusions, so I tried to brush it off. But then there was the sudden interest in her phone. She started keeping it glued to her side, never leaving it unattended. If I dared to glance at her screen, she'd quickly change the subject or make some excuse to walk away. I noticed she was spending more time on social media, especially with family members we hadn't connected with in years. It was almost like she was trying to reconnect with her past, but I had no idea how deep that connection would go. The tipping point came when my aunt reached out to me one night. She was giddy, talking about a family reunion coming up, and mentioned seeing Sarah with a guy who turned out to be my long-lost cousin, Jake. My heart sank as she described how they were acting together, too close, too familiar. My mind raced back to a week earlier when Sarah had slipped out under the guise of a girls' night with friends. Was she really out with her family, or was she with him? This was the moment everything started to unravel. I had to know the truth. That night I decided to check her phone. It was a risky move, but curiosity and fear got the best of me. I was shaky as I entered her passcode, a number I'd seen her enter countless times. The screen lit up, revealing a world I never wanted to see. Text messages, flirty exchanges, and images I wish I could unsee. It was all there. A detailed account of her clandestine affair with Jake, a guy she claimed was just a cousin she was reconnecting with for the family reunion. In that moment, I felt my heart shatter into a million pieces. The betrayal was like a physical blow, knocking the wind out of me. I had trusted her completely, and yet here she was, having sex with someone I barely knew while playing the dutiful wife at home. I felt furious and humiliated, and every moment we had shared together felt tainted by her lies. The next day I confronted her. I can still remember the look on her face. Shock quickly morphed into defiance. "How could you go through my phone, Mike? You invaded my privacy," she shouted, her voice dripping with indignation. The nerve, as if her betrayal was my fault. I laid out everything I had found, her denial only digging the knife deeper. "That was just a phase, Mike. You know how people can get caught up with family." "It doesn't mean anything," she said, her voice rising in pitch as her excuses spiraled. I was furious. The woman I thought I knew was being replaced by someone selfish and deceitful. I felt like I was watching a stranger unravel before my eyes. The emotional toll of the confrontation was exhausting. I couldn't believe how far she had fallen into this lie, convinced that her actions had no consequences. As I walked away from that conversation, I was flooded with anger, hurt, and confusion. How could someone I loved so deeply betray me so carelessly? I felt like I was on an emotional roller coaster, unable to process the speed at which my life was spiraling out of control. I went through every emotion: denial, disbelief, anger. I felt like I was in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from, but I knew I had to make a decision about how to move forward. Did I even want to salvage what was left of our marriage, or was it time to cut my losses and walk away? The decisions loomed over me, heavy and suffocating, as my heart screamed for clarity in the chaos. Days turned into a blur as I grappled with the emotional fallout of Sarah's betrayal. I'd never felt such a cocktail of feelings. Anger simmered beneath the surface, sadness washed over me like a tidal wave, and anxiety nagged. At the back of my mind, I kept replaying our conversations, our interactions, and the little moments we shared, searching for signs I had missed. It felt surreal to think that I had been living with a stranger. At work, I was hardly able to focus. My colleagues noticed something was off. I couldn't hide the dark circles under my eyes or the tightness in my jaw. I tried to maintain a brave face, telling myself that I could get through this. but inside I was unraveling. My mind kept going back to that message I saw on her phone from Jake. "Can't wait to see you at the reunion, just you and me like old times." It felt like a dagger to my heart. What old times, times I never knew about? I started to piece together a timeline, searching for a way to confront Sarah again, this time with a plan. I needed to understand the full extent of her deceit. I reached out to my aunt under the pretense of catching up. As we talked, I casually inquired about Jake. To my shock, she had nothing but glowing things to say about him. "He's such a good guy, Mike. We've all missed him. Did you know he's been looking for family connections through that Ancestry DNA site? He's really into it." That struck me as odd. The idea that Jake was suddenly part of our family was unsettling, especially since he had been a ghost in our lives for so long. I couldn't help but wonder if Sarah had connected with him before or after he reached out. My mind was racing again, the pieces of the puzzle swimming in a chaotic dance. I decided to confront Sarah again, but this time I would do it differently. Instead of letting her deflect and manipulate the conversation, I'd gather evidence, facts, and even enlist help. I called on my best friend, Sam. He had been through a similar situation a few years back and had emerged wiser and stronger. Sam listened as I laid everything out: the texts, the phone call with my aunt, the changes in Sarah's behavior. He was like an anchor in the storm, grounding me amidst the chaos. "Mike, you deserve to know the truth. Look, let's set a little trap. I can help you phase out the truth from her. We'll catch her in the act if she's still lying," he suggested one night over beers at my place. It sounded risky, but also liberating. I needed closure and clarity. I nodded, feeling a sense of purpose for the first time in days. Over the next week, we executed our plan. I feigned normalcy at home, acting as if everything was fine while Sam monitored Sarah's social media and interactions from a distance. He offered to help with the family reunion planning, keeping an eye out for any signs of Jake's involvement. The more I involved Sam, the better I felt, like I was not alone in this mess. It became clear I needed allies. That weekend, Sarah and I attended a barbecue at my parents' house. The atmosphere was tense, and I could see her acting unusually on edge, avoiding direct conversations with me. When I casually mentioned Jake's name, she stiffened. "Oh, he's just a cousin." "Nothing to worry about," she replied too quickly, a forced smile plastered on her face. The red flags were flaring up again. I could feel the anger bubbling beneath my calm exterior. Later that night, while Sarah was in the bathroom, I took the opportunity to send Sam a quick text. "She's hiding something. Can you please keep an eye on her?" He replied almost immediately, reassuring me that he was on it, and I felt a renewed sense of determination wash over me. The days leading up to the family reunion were a mix of dread and anticipation. I was both excited and terrified at the prospect of seeing Jake and Sarah together. Would this be the moment everything unraveled? Would I finally get the answers I desperately needed? As the day of the reunion approached, my heart raced with mixed feelings. I was ready to confront Sarah, to lay everything on the table, and I knew I wouldn't be alone. With Sam by my side, I felt empowered, no longer just a victim of her lies, but a man ready to reclaim his life. I wanted answers, and I was determined to find them, no matter the cost. The night before the reunion, I tossed and turned in bed, replaying every scenario in my mind. I feared what would happen when the truth came out. Would Sarah own up to her actions, or would she continue to lie and manipulate? Regardless of the outcome, I knew I had to face her, and I had to do it soon. The thought of seeing them together made my stomach churn, but I was ready for battle. Little did I know, the confrontation would lead to secrets, revelations, and emotions I had never anticipated. The day of the family reunion finally arrived, and it felt as if the weight of the world was resting on my shoulders. I dressed carefully, trying to project a calm exterior even though my insides were churning. I glanced in the mirror, searching for a glimpse of the man I used to be, the one who believed in love, loyalty, and partnership. Instead, I saw someone who felt betrayed and broken, a shell of his former self. When we arrived at the park, I immediately scanned the crowd for Jake. I spotted him right away, leaning against a food table, surrounded by family. He was laughing, charming everyone, and I could feel the anger bubbling within me. But I couldn't let that show. I had to keep my composure. Sarah was with me, her hand resting on my back, but it felt more like a weight dragging me down than a sign of connection. As we mingled with family, I caught snippets of conversations. I could hear my relatives reminisce about old family stories, and I couldn't help but feel excluded from this world Sarah had built around her affair. She was engaging and flirty, completely at ease while I was struggling to keep my cool. I felt like a ghost in my own life, watching it unfold without being part of it. When I finally approached Jake, my heart raced. He smiled wide, greeting me with a friendly clap on the back. "Mike, it's been too long. I'm so glad we're finally meeting," he said, his voice warm and inviting. I forced a smile in return, but underneath I felt the bitterness rising. How could he act so friendly when he was the other man in my wife's life? "Yeah, it's great to meet you too," I replied, trying to mask the tension in my voice. "Sarah mentioned you a few times." The last part came out more like a statement of accusation than a compliment. Jake glanced at Sarah, who was standing a few feet away, a playful smile dancing on her lips. The sight sent a fresh wave of anger coursing through me. As the afternoon wore on, I stayed close to Sam, who was constantly observing everything. I could tell he was waiting for the right moment to intervene. I felt like a live wire, ready to snap at any moment. The tension was building, and I knew I had to act soon. At one point, I overheard Sarah laughing with some of our relatives, sharing stories about how she had reconnected with Jake. My stomach turned at the sound of her laughter, so carefree and genuine. It felt like a knife twisting deeper into my heart. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to confront her, not just for me, but for this facade she had built around us. "Sarah, can we talk?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up, surprise flashing in her eyes, but there was also a flicker of annoyance. "Sure, Mike. What's wrong?" she replied, her tone almost dismissive. I could feel the tension in the air as I led her to a quieter corner of the park, away from prying eyes and ears. Once we were alone, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to say. "I know about you and Jake," I said, my voice low but firm. The look on her face was a mix of shock and defiance. "What are you talking about?" she asked, crossing her arms defensively. "Don't play dumb with me, Sarah. I saw the texts. I know you've been seeing him behind my back," I pressed, anger bubbling just beneath the surface. Her reaction was immediate. "You went through my phone. How dare you invade my privacy?" she shouted, her voice rising. I felt a rush of frustration at her audacity. There she was, the one who had betrayed me, but somehow she was turning this around on me. "Stop acting like the victim here. You're the one who's cheating." I shot back, my voice rising in frustration. I was done tiptoeing around her feelings. I wanted the truth, raw and unfiltered. "Mike, it's not what you think. Jake and I were just reconnecting over family stuff," she stammered, trying to regain her composure. "You know how emotional family reunions can be." "Emotional? You call having sex with him emotional?" I hissed, my anger boiling over. "You think I'm just going to believe that? You've been lying to me for months, Sarah." The confrontation felt electric, charged with years of frustration and betrayal. She opened her mouth to respond, but the words faltered. She looked around, her expression shifting as if she were trying to gauge the situation. I could see the wheels turning in her head, calculating her next move. "Look, Mike, I didn't mean to hurt you. I just got caught up in everything. Jake's. He's family," she said, her voice faltering. "Family? You're sleeping with your family," I shot back, incredulous. "What's next, Sarah? Are you going to tell me it's all some twisted family reunion fling?" "Mike, please calm down. This isn't how I wanted this to go," she pleaded, her voice softening. But it was too late. The floodgates had opened, and I was done with her excuses. A sudden wave of quiet rage overtook me. "I don't want to hear your excuses anymore. You've made your choice," I said, my voice steady now, cutting through the emotional chaos. I turned to walk away, but she grabbed my arm, desperation in her eyes. "Mike, don't walk away like this. Let's talk about it," she urged. "No, Sarah, you've had your chance to talk. Now it's my turn to decide what I want." I pulled my arm free and made my way back to Sam, who stood nearby, watching with a knowing expression. "I can't believe she tried to play the victim," I said to him, shaking my head. "It's infuriating how they twist the narrative." Sam nodded, and I could see the weight of my decision settling in. I had confronted Sarah, but the reality was still sinking in. I didn't just want to confront her, I wanted to reclaim my life. As the afternoon wore on, I realized that I needed to make a choice about our future. I was done being the victim in my own life. It was time to take control. With every ounce of resolve, I steeled myself for what lay ahead, no longer willing to accept the lies and betrayal that had clouded our marriage. The reunion might have been intended to bring family together, but for me, it was the catalyst for transforming my life into something I wanted to own again. The rest of the reunion was a blur. I could barely focus on the conversations around me, my mind spinning with the weight of the confrontation I had just had with Sarah. It was surreal watching everyone laugh and enjoy themselves while I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, staring down into the abyss. The family I once felt a part of now felt like a strange, distant gathering where I didn't belong. Sam stuck close by my side, a supportive presence amidst the chaos. I could feel his energy shift as he watched me process what had just unfolded. "You okay?" he asked, concern etched on his face. I appreciated his willingness to check in, but I wasn't sure how to answer. "Not really, but I will be. I just need to figure this all out," I replied, my voice heavy with uncertainty. After a while, I decided it was time to confront Sarah again. I needed clarity. What did she want? What were we? I found her standing near the food table, chatting animatedly with some relatives. She looked up and saw me approaching, the momentary spark in her eyes quickly fading to a guarded expression. I noticed how she straightened her posture, preparing to defend herself. "Can we talk again?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. "I need to understand where we stand." "Mike, this isn't the time or place," she replied, her voice low, almost pleading. "Let's just enjoy the day. We can talk later." "No, Sarah, we need to talk now," I insisted, my patience wearing thin. The joy and laughter that surrounded me felt suffocating, a stark contrast to the turmoil inside my heart. She sighed, glancing around before finally nodding. We stepped away from the crowd, finding a quiet corner behind some trees. "What do you want to say?" she asked, her arms crossed defensively. "Because I already told you everything. I don't want to hurt you. I just got caught up in family stuff." "Stop deflecting. This isn't just family stuff, and you know it. You were cheating on me." "I saw the messages. Do you really think I'd buy that excuse?" I shot back, feeling the anger surge again. "You've betrayed me in ways I can't even begin to express. I need to know if you still want this marriage or if you want to pursue whatever it is you have with Jake." She looked taken aback, her eyes searching mine. "Mike, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I just felt so lost, and reconnecting with Jake gave me a sense of belonging. I didn't think it would turn into whatever this is," she stammered, her voice wavering. "Belonging? You think sleeping with my cousin gives you a sense of belonging? This is insanity, Sarah." I threw my hands up in frustration. "Do you even understand how much this hurts? You think you can just excuse it away because it's family?" "I know it was wrong. I didn't think about the consequences at the time. I just wanted to feel something again," she said, her voice breaking. "I've felt so disconnected from you for a while now." Her words struck me deep. "Disconnected? You think that justifies cheating? We could have talked about what was wrong, but instead you ran off to him." I felt the frustration boiling over, but I also felt a flicker of sadness at the truth of her words. "Maybe I didn't know how to talk to you," she shot back, her voice rising again. "You were always so focused on work, and I felt like I was just here. I wanted to feel alive again, even if it was a mistake." It was like a light bulb went off in my head. I had been so consumed by my own hurt, I hadn't realized how disconnected we had become. But still, it didn't excuse her actions. "Sarah, that doesn't justify what you did. You could have talked to me about your feelings. Instead, you chose to betray me." Silence hung between us for a moment, heavy with unspoken words. I could see the tears welling in her eyes, but it felt like too little too late. "I don't know how to fix this, Mike. I really don't," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe it's too late to fix it," I replied, my heart aching. "You've broken my trust, and I don't know if I can ever get that back, but I need to decide what I want moving forward." As I stood there, I felt the weight of her betrayal settling like a stone in my chest. I realized that I had to take a step back and think clearly about my next move. This was about more than just my feelings, it was about what I wanted for my future. I need some time, I told her finally, turning to walk away. I can't make any decisions right now. I need to think about everything. Mike, please don't walk away from me. We can work through this. She called after me, but I didn't turn back. I felt a mix of sadness and relief as I stepped away from her, knowing that I was doing what I had to do for my own sanity. As I rejoined Sam, I felt a sense of clarity beginning to form amidst the chaos. I didn't have all the answers yet, but I knew I couldn't remain in this limbo any longer. I needed to gather my thoughts and explore my options. "Hey, how did it go?" Sam asked, his expression serious. "It was rough," I admitted. "But I think I finally understand how deep this goes. I need to figure out if this marriage is worth saving." He nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "Take your time, man. Whatever you decide, I've got your back." As I looked around at my family, laughing and sharing stories, I felt the tension begin to lift. I was surrounded by love and support, even if my own life felt shattered. It was time to reclaim that support, to lean on the people who cared about me. I might have lost trust in Sarah, but I still had a family, and I wouldn't let her choices dictate my happiness. The reunion had become a turning point for me. I was ready to own my story, to rewrite the narrative that had been so cruelly altered. No more living in the shadows of someone else's betrayal. I was determined to step back into the light and move forward, one step at a time. The days after the reunion were a whirlwind of emotions. I oscillated between feelings of anger, sadness, and a strange sense of liberation. After so many years of clinging to the idea of a perfect marriage, I was faced with the harsh reality of my situation. I had to confront the truth of what had happened and decide how I was going to move forward. Sarah reached out multiple times after the reunion, but I needed space. I wasn't ready to have the same conversations that had only led us in circles before. Instead, I focused on reconnecting with myself and my own goals. I spent more time with friends, particularly Sam, who continued to offer unwavering support. One night, while we were out for drinks, Sam brought up a topic that had been weighing on my mind. "Have you thought about counseling?" he asked, his tone gentle but firm. "It might help you both sort through the mess." I sighed, contemplating his suggestion. I don't even know if I want to be in the same room with her right now. It feels like everything she's done has made counseling pointless. "Mike, it's not just about the two of you. It's about you too. You need to understand your own feelings and how to deal with all of this. Maybe it could help you find closure, even if it doesn't end up saving your marriage," he reasoned. As I mulled over his words, I realized he had a point. I needed to explore my feelings more deeply, to understand the full scope of my emotional landscape. "Okay, I'll think about it, but I'm not making any promises," I replied begrudgingly. The next day, I took a step I hadn't anticipated. I reached out to a marriage counselor I had found online. The decision felt monumental, but deep down, I knew that I needed guidance to navigate this tumultuous chapter of my life, regardless of whether it meant reconciling with Sarah or moving on. When I walked into the counselor's office for my first session, I felt a mixture of anxiety and relief. The atmosphere was calm and inviting, and as I settled into the chair across from her, I opened up about my situation. "I'm not sure if this is even going to help," I admitted, my voice shaky. "But I'm desperate for some clarity." The counselor listened patiently, prompting me to explore my feelings surrounding Sarah's betrayal. I talked about the anger I felt, the humiliation, and the deep sense of loss. I also reflected on our marriage and the moments that had led us to this point. The more I spoke, the more I began to make sense of my emotional turmoil. "Mike, it's understandable to feel a range of emotions when faced with infidelity. Your feelings of anger are valid, but so are your feelings of sadness and confusion. It's important to acknowledge and process each of these emotions as you move forward," she explained, her tone comforting yet direct. After several sessions, I began to gain insight into my relationship with Sarah. I had always believed that love was enough to make a marriage work, but I was starting to realize that communication and emotional connection were equally vital. I began to see my own role in our disconnect, even if it didn't excuse her actions. Meanwhile, Sarah had been trying to reach out to me, desperate to reconnect. I received messages from her, filled with apologies and reminders of our happier times together. "I miss us, Mike. I made a horrible mistake and I want to make it right," she wrote one evening. I felt torn. Part of me wanted to believe her, to work through the pain together. I remembered the love we had shared, the dreams we had built, and I desperately wished to return to that place. But another part of me was still reeling from the betrayal, unsure if I could ever trust her again. After several more sessions, I made the decision to meet with Sarah. I felt it was time to address our issues head-on rather than continuing to avoid them. We arranged to meet at a cafe, and as the day approached, I felt a mix of anticipation and dread. When I walked into the cafe, I spotted her sitting at a table, her hands nervously fidgeting with her coffee cup. She looked up when she saw me, and her expression was a mixture of hope and apprehension. "Hi," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Hi," I replied, taking a seat across from her. The tension between us was palpable, and I could see the pain etched on her face. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," I began, my heart racing. "About us, about what happened. I know I messed everything up, Mike. I never wanted to hurt you. I was just so lost. I thought I could find something with Jake that I didn't have with you," she said, her eyes pleading. "I get that you were feeling disconnected, but that doesn't excuse what you did. You made a choice to cheat on me. It wasn't just a one-time thing," I replied, my voice steady. "I'm still struggling to understand why you felt that was your only option." I was being selfish. I didn't think about the consequences at the time. I didn't think about you or our marriage. I just wanted to feel something again, she admitted, tears brimming in her eyes. "Sarah, I want to believe you, I really do. But trust doesn't come easily after what happened. I need to know you're committed to rebuilding that trust if we're going to move forward," I said, feeling the weight of the conversation. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes, Mike. I can go to counseling too. I want to understand my own feelings and why I made those choices," she responded earnestly. As we talked, I could feel the tiniest glimmer of hope flickering to life. Perhaps this could be a turning point for us, or perhaps it was just wishful thinking. I knew it would take time and effort on both our parts, but I also recognized that we had to start somewhere. "I'm not saying we can just go back to how things were. It's going to take time," I warned, my heart heavy with uncertainty. "But I'm willing to try if you are." Sarah nodded, the relief washing over her face like a wave. "I'll do anything to show you that I'm committed to us, Mike. Just give me a chance." We spent the rest of the afternoon talking, diving into the painful truths of our relationship. It wasn't easy, but I felt a weight lifting as we began to address the issues that had been buried for so long. As we left the cafe, I knew it would be a long road ahead, but for the first time since discovering her infidelity, I felt a sense of direction, a possibility of healing together or apart. Ultimately, what mattered now was that we were both willing to confront the realities of our relationship and work toward a better future, no matter how uncertain it felt. As the weeks passed, Sarah and I began to navigate the rocky terrain of our relationship. It wasn't easy, and there were days when I questioned whether I was making the right choice by trying to reconcile. But we committed to counseling, both individual and couple sessions, allowing us to confront our issues in a safe space. Each session peeled back layers of hurt, revealing the vulnerabilities beneath our actions. I learned things about Sarah that I hadn't realized before. The pressures she faced, the loneliness she felt while I was buried in work, and the emotional disconnect that had grown between us. It was painful to hear, but I understood that her infidelity was not just an act of betrayal. It was a cry for help that she didn't know how to voice. At the same time, I also had to face my own shortcomings. I had been dismissive of her emotional needs, caught up in my own world. I realized that I hadn't noticed the signs of her distress, and that guilt weighed heavily on my heart. It became clear that rebuilding our marriage would require effort from both of us, an honest commitment to understanding and supporting each other. One evening, after a particularly intense therapy session, we sat together on the couch, a comfortable silence enveloping us. I glanced at her, the woman I had loved for so long. and saw the vulnerability etched on her face. "You know, this is harder than I thought it would be," I said, breaking the silence. "I know," she replied, her voice soft. "But I'm willing to fight for us, Mike. I can't change the past, but I want to make things right moving forward." Her sincerity struck a chord within me, and I nodded. "I want that too. I don't want to keep living in the shadow of your mistake. I want to move forward, but it's going to take time." We continued to communicate more openly, sharing our feelings and fears without fear of judgment. Slowly, I began to see glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with. We spent quality time together, rekindling the affection that had once been the foundation of our relationship. We laughed, reminisced about old memories, and even created new ones: a picnic in the park, a movie night on the couch, just enjoying each other's presence. Still, the journey wasn't linear. There were nights filled with doubts, moments when I would replay the betrayal in my head, and the fear of relapse would creep in. It was hard to silence that inner voice that whispered doubts and insecurities. But each time I voiced my fears to Sarah, we tackled them together. She listened, validated my feelings, and reminded me of her commitment. After months of counseling, we finally reached a turning point. One afternoon, Sarah surprised me with a picnic in our backyard. She'd set up a cozy blanket under the oak tree, filled with our favorite snacks and a bottle of wine. "I wanted to celebrate how far we've come," she said, her eyes sparkling with joy. As we sat together reminiscing about our journey, I felt a sense of warmth and comfort. We had rebuilt the foundation of our relationship, brick by brick, and I could feel the love starting to flourish again. "Thank you for fighting for us, Mike. I know it hasn't been easy," she said, her voice sincere. I smiled, realizing how much we had grown together. "And thank you for being open to working through everything. It's been a learning experience for both of us." In that moment, I understood that while the past would always be a part of our story, it didn't have to define our future. We still had work to do, but the effort we had put into healing strengthened our bond. As we toasted to new beginnings, I couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. While I still carried the scars of betrayal, they no longer felt like shackles. Instead, they were reminders of our journey, the lessons we had learned, and the commitment we had made to one another. Reflecting on this experience, I realized that life is never as clear-cut as we want it to be. Relationships take work, vulnerability, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. I've learned the importance of communication and the power of forgiveness, not just toward my partner, but also toward myself. If there's one piece of advice I'd give to anyone facing infidelity or relationship troubles, it's this: embrace the discomfort and be willing to dig deep. The road to healing may not be easy, but it can lead to a stronger, more authentic connection if both partners are committed to the journey. As I sat there with Sarah, surrounded by the warmth of our home and the love that was beginning to flourish again, I felt a renewed sense of purpose and belief in the power of love. No matter what the future held, I was ready to face it, side by side with the woman who had once broken my heart, but who was now working tirelessly to heal it.